Joshua, way back, chapter 16 and 17. It's amazing because I discovered these chapters, maybe 4 years ago. I don't know. I just stick a number on there because I really don't know. I discovered this little man whose hatred for women was so apparent. He murdered his own concubine, more or less. And then somehow he thought it wasn't going to be seen as wickedness when he cut her body up in, 12 pieces and sent a piece to each of the tribes and said, "Look at the horrible thing that has happened to my concubine. Should we not avenge this?" And he had done it, right? Come on, let's think about this. He accused her of playing a harlot, and she was his, not wife, concubine. Oh my gosh. And you know what it says? Every man did according to what was in his heart. And you know what was in their heart? Hey, I want more than one wife. And, we got to legalize this somehow. We'll call them concubines. That's what we'll do. And then it'll just all seem right. But in 16 and 17, we get this growing understanding that this is where modern day religion actually come from. They wanted a priest. They said, "Please let us call you father." I might have it a little screwed up there. And it's all wrapped up with the story of the concubine that gets murdered by this man. And one of the tribe is wise enough to go, "Ew," when they open it and go, "Ew, this is from sickness. Why would we go along and support somebody who's crazy enough to cut up a body?" I think it's absolutely horrid. And years ago, I remember the men on the pulpit teaching like this was from God. This is how God is. God, this is completely from God. This was totally fine. A concubine. Yeah. And the men raped her all night long because the men wanted the men to come out. And so even though the servant of her father's house said no, because, the father stalled him from leaving with his daughter, and his daughter hadn't played the harlot, she had simply run back to her father's house for protection against this wicked man. These men who were writing laws saying, "Oh, we can have as many women as we want, it's legal, it's from God," and blah, 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 and on they go. And we get this law in Numbers chapter 5, where they said the law of bitter waters. It was just another method to murder women yet again, and you can see that, and we discussed that a long time ago. We haven't recapped that in a while. So they were writing laws that really benefited them, and they were, at this point, able to do to women, little girls, whatever they wanted to do. And the father, weak-minded, who probably was raised up thinking, "Okay, well, this is the way it is. They're telling me this is from God Father, and we know that Father's God." That pride caught the father even in this lie, so that he even turned over his own daughter to this wicked man. He says, "Well, the best I can do for her is send my servant, maybe to protect her a little bit." So he sends a servant with this, I think he was an Ephraimite. But God says, you appointed not Levites over my law. You took it out of the mouth of the Levites, who were my righteous servants, who upheld my law. They knew what it meant to uphold my law. They showed, the Levites actually showed that they were the only ones worthy of upholding God's law in their mouth and enforcing it when they brought in the golden cow image. It was only it wasn't a cow, actually. It was a male. You go look the word up. But made this golden image of I don't know. It doesn't say cow. I forget what it says, calf. And they saw the idolatry beginning. And when they were asked to go out and slay the people that were following behind this, they went in and they did it. They cut it away. And they were blessed because of that, the true Levites, to uphold the laws of God. But God says, you appoint men that aren't fit to uphold my law. They're not Levites. They're not upholding my way. Okay, so I don't know that this man, I can't remember the whole story because it's been a while since, I was just skimming it a couple weeks ago, which is why I began to focus on it again, because I do want to go in and look at it. But we saw the men actually shaping this religion around man. So anyway, the father sends his servant, to maybe protect his daughter, this damsel, from this wicked man who is playing a man of God. And the servant says to him, we should not take this route because there's a city there that we do not want to stay the night in. We really need to stay away from that. And you know what he does? He says, let's go. So they go right in because his mind was turning the whole time. Okay, I can make something with this. We can make this work for us, boys. We can. And so when the men of that city comes and wants the men, you know what he does? He sends out his little damsel, and it says they raped her all night long. She crawls to the threshold, and this is the heartfelt man. He says to her, get up. That's what he says to her. Oh, so much love. And the boys on the pulpit, I remember them reading this in small parts and then saying, well, obviously this was from God. Yeah, obviously this was, yeah, right. And he says, get up. And when he realizes that she's been murdered, his mind's turning, I can make this work for me. And so he cuts her body up in a whole bunch of pieces and sends a part to each one of the tribes and says, we must go to war against the city that did this. Now, if I received, what would you do if you received the body, say an arm, let's just say a piece of an arm. And oh my gosh, who did that? Who cut that arm up? You'd be so put off. It takes a sick mind to do that. And one of the tribes are smart enough that they caught on to that and said, this is sick. We want nothing to do with it. And there was more to it than that, I'm sure. But we see the building here, right? How long will you harbor malicious thoughts within you? So, for a voice announces from Dan proclaiming malice from Mount Ephraim, and there was malice from Mount Ephraim. The concubine in some context is also considered the real original branch, and they were becoming the concubines as opposed to the wife. So we get this allegory, but the men grab onto, God okayed it. No, God did not okay it. There was one and one, and that's how it was always supposed to be. And that came straight from God. You're the ones who want it to play God. So warn the nations, look, proclaim, those who besiege are coming from a distant land. They raise their voices against the cities of Judah. They have her surrounded like those who guard a field because she has rebelled against me. And the women were rebelling against God. They were rebelling against Mother because at that time we see them turning away from her and turning to husband as if he was Lord and God. Then we bring in the harlot aspect of it. We also understand that these sons who had promised to uphold the covenant of the first wife, we find them perjuring themselves in the courts of heaven to get possession of her throne. Then at that point, we see them actually murdering the wise old women on the cornerstones in Lamentations 4:1, and that we see was to take possession of the next generation of daughters so that they could raise them up to turn on their own mother's law and turn to their husband's law as if he was Lord and God. And so we get Mordecai, which means follower of Marduk. Marduk was another name for the solar calf idol, which is another name for Baal as Lord and God, husband. And so Mordecai took her under his wings, this little girl, and taught her how to bow to a king, right? So we see all of the happenings of that. It was a slow evolution, and if you were sincere in studying the Old Testament, you would come upon that knowledge through wisdom to teach you that. Your way of life and your actions have brought this on you. This is your punishment. It is very bitter because it has reached your heart. So her heart turned utterly and completely on the true living God, her own mother, whose image she's made in. We see Ruth doing the same thing. She actually followed, not Ruth, Naomi, that's my name, following her husband into a foreign land, which she really was not supposed to, according to God. But instead of listening to God, and perhaps to her heart at that time, she was listening to her husband and she followed him into the land to seek out food. Of course, we know that disaster came upon Naomi. She lost her husband and her 2 sons, but she returned with Ruth. A blessing. So she did. She returned with a great blessing after she turned back to the truth, I think. So you get the bitterness in the law system because when she turned from mother, obviously, and her law and enforcing that and help keeping that in play, then the men come in and take charge of that, which is why then we also saw men taking charge of the next generation of little girls to teach them this ridiculous notion that man is God. We also see them doing it in Jeremiah 23, and they began to prophesy through he. And God says, I sent you not, yet you ran. And we'll take a closer look at that. Hopefully, if I don't forget in the next video. Disaster is reported because the whole land is destroyed. Suddenly, my tents are destroyed. My tent curtains. In a moment, how long shall I see the standard and hear the sound of the trumpet? For my people are fools. They do not know me. They are foolish children. She says, you departed from me in the days of your youth. Remember me. Why, it's in Ecclesiastics. Basically, why you're able to draw water from the well. Remember me, right? Until the silver cord is cut and the bowl is smashed. So remember me when you're able to draw water. Still able to draw water. Because there's going to come a time when you're not able to do that. And that comes if we actually bring on the apocalypse, right? So hopefully we're averting it by knowing this truth. So how long must I see the signal flag and hear the sound of the horn? For my people are fools. They do not know me. They are foolish children without understanding. You don't know you have a mother? And I said that in the last video with the archangel Uriel, which means fire of God. Oh, that a fire had come out of Zion. She's looking for daughters holding her truth. And that's going to feel like fire. It should purify. But at the same time, it's going to burn the wicked pride of men. It is. Those who have too much pride. So she says, oh, that a fire had come out of Zion. Well, we know Uriel, the archangel, and we're not looking at angel worship. I think we're looking here with Uriel as simply a holy one, really. The archangels are no better than us. If you want to go, oh, there's archangels and there's us. The archangels, according to the Bible, is no better than us. And we see in Revelation the angel, when John was about to bow to this angel who was going to show him some things concerning New Jerusalem, the angel said, stand up. You don't bow to, I'm one of you, more or less. I'm a holy one like you. You don't ever bow to me, never. And so, that was part of our fall. We began to worship angels. We began to worship all the signs in the heavens. We began to do